Uh, Good day to you all, friends. Uh, in this video, we look at right views, and we discuss why right views are important to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. As we have described earlier, the Noble Eightfold Path is important to all laymen to live a good, contented life with a sound mentality. And to follow this path, right views are of utmost importance, great importance. So here we uh, discuss why right views are important, why they are of great importance to follow the path. Now, uh, as we discussed earlier, this path, which has 8 steps, starting from right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right concentration, and right mindfulness. These eightfold uh, actions, practical actions, have to be followed simultaneously. And on top of them, the most important factor of this path is the right view. It is the right view or right views. There are many views uh, which are considered as right views in Buddhism. These right views are the motivating factors, they are the motivators for a person to successfully practice the other steps. Without them, there is no motivation. Without motivation, there is no action. There won't be any action. There won't be any enthusiasm. Therefore, these views are of great importance. And what are these views? There are many views. Let us mention a few here. The law of impermanence is a view considered as a right view in the Buddhist teachings. The law of impermanence, the law of dependent origination, the dependent nation, dependent nature of things, dependent nature of things is also a factor, a view that is to be considered as essential to follow this view. Then the belief in karma, belief in intention or karma is of utmost importance. Here, the belief of karma believes that he will reap the results of good and bad karma himself, here in this birth and hereafter. And he believes that it will model his personality, especially habitual karma, karma that is repeated, the karma that becomes a part of his life would decide his fate. So this is something that has to be considered as a right view in Buddhism. Belief in rebirth. Belief in rebirth or reincarnation, that is also a belief that should be a view that should be held as a right view. So these views should be not only these views, there are many more views. In fact, the Buddha dealt with 62 false views that were prevalent at his time, and he effectively showed how these views are not beneficial to follow the path. So once again, uh, we have to look deeper into the subject. We must consider views, some views which are not religious. In fact, some views are considered as religious, and uh, and those are and these views are not uh, discussed openly because there is uh, a vast following to these views, and uh, expressing views that are opposing to these views could hurt the sentiments of these followers is a common belief. It's true. Now, the same applies to Buddhist views also. Views which are considered as religious views, as Buddhism has evolved into a religion. Uh, when somebody disagrees with these views, the sentiments of the Buddhists are also hurt. But still, Buddhists or those who want to follow the path of Buddhism with the intention of uh, bettering their lives should examine these views and analyze these views, which are taught as the teachings of the Buddha, should be analyzed and critically should be critically analyzed, examined, and only after that they should accept them. There is freedom to criticize them. There is freedom to discard them. It depends on the individual. If an individual thinks, it should be done on individual level. If a person thinks these factors which are mentioned as right views are unacceptable to his or her intellect, he is free to discard them and follow whatever view that is acceptable to him or her. So this is what we call wisdom based on thinking. You are your master. You can think for yourself. Nobody forces you. Nobody will give you gifts uh, for your accepting of views. Now, uh, wisdom, there is a wisdom factor based on learning. This is what you are doing now. You learn the teachings of the Buddha with the view of developing your wisdom. So it is not your own thinking, but the thinking of somebody else. So when you learn something you got to analyze these learnings, you got to investigate these learnings, you got to critically examine these uh, teachings. Only after that you must accept them. So, as you have mentioned, accepting or rejecting is your own responsibility. Nobody forces you to accept. But unless you have faith on them, unless you have faith on them, you are not uh, motivated to act on this path. To act on this path, to uh, follow the steps of this path, you got to have faith, and your faith will be the motivating factor. Same as in the other uh, religions, if you want to take Buddhism as a religion, but Buddhism is not a religion. As we have mentioned, it has evolved into a religion, and it is this evolution into a religion that has brought some kind of difficulties, some kind of confusion, and when one tries to get the basics out of the path, because as a religion it has this cultural and religious ritualistic form, and you got to separate them with the intellectual part. That's the reason. So this kind of analysis was done when the Buddha visited a group of people. In fact, Buddha happened to be in the village of Kalamas, and the Kalamas came forward and asked Buddha, why should we accept your view? There are many ascetics and brahmanas who visit our village. They do the same. They preach, they expound their doctrine, and they tell us that it is the truth. And they condemn and ridicule and discard the teachings of the others who have uh, expounded Dhamma to us. When we tell them that this ascetic, this Brahmana has told otherwise, so they condemn them and they tell theirs is the truth. Then Buddha came up with this answer. It's up to you, accepting or rejecting is up to you. If you think yourself, if you think for yourself that something is true, if you think something is true with your own thinking, then accept it. If you think it's wholesome, beneficial, accept it. If you think it's not wholesome, it is not beneficial, you may reject it, discard it. So here once again, uh, faith is a factor that is essential, and only those who have some kind of faith have motivating factor to follow the path. So I think you have understood why views are important to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. We shall discuss these views elaborately and show you how each of these views are important to follow the path. Thank you for listening. This audio was brought to you with the courtesy of Jnana Darshana Association, and may the Triple Gem bless you.